Good job, camera lady.
Welcome back to the Chronicles of the Sacred Fire of Mount Shasta. I'm here with the founder and friend Sparrow, Joseph Sparrow.
Good to see you.
So we've been wondering how to continue the conversation because there are so many directions for us to go. So right now we're just going to do a little catch up because we're just short of 2 months since our initial introduction to Mount Shasta living and all of the mysteries of life surrounding that. So right now we're going to just do like a little recap of where we're at, what's transpired. I mean, we see like some kind of change has gone on. You have less hair on your face. I've got green hair. You mentioned like, wow, we've got like noticeable shifts going on. So yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, well, getting a little more comfortable. Yeah, folks. Well, thanks for tuning in today, and yeah, it's nice to be back talking with you, Veruschka, and yeah, it's starting to be the beginning phase of spring on the mountain here. The ground temperature is above freezing, up at this elevation, and um, yeah, excuse me. Doing a little camera work there, but yeah, like wonderful ski season. It's been pretty good. Precipitation on the mountain. We've got a few weeks left of that, and shifting up crafting. Was really successful with doing the distillations through the winter time, and experimenting with some new plants. Ponderosa is like the one that's latest on the menu, which has been blowing my mind. And yeah, kind of the orientation of that, like during the winter time, you keep your stoke high by like skiing and doing whatever it is like that. But springtime brings in a whole new strategy of like needing to take care of homesteading responsibilities and developments, and organizing, just the awareness, like Shasta's the spot, and so it's about to be springtime. And so we've got all these open air markets and events and stuff like that. So been working with local city councils here in McLeod, and getting involved in our mushroom fair this year. It's going to be a rager. You guys should come. But yeah, like kind of that orientation, and yeah, just lots of just reorganizing the itinerary is what I would say, in this phase of the season. How about you, Veruschka? What have you been up to?
Well, I went to Peru for, I don't even think the last time we spoke, I even had a ticket.
Wow.
I don't know if it was even part of the conversation. I just knew since last summer I was sort of ordered to go there. I just didn't know when that would take place. And met up with a friend who had the same vision, and within, I think, less than 2 weeks, we had a ticket and we were going. And had to jump through some hoops. And alas, when you persevere, I had an amazing 3 weeks in Peru. Never knew that was a place I needed to see, wanted to see. I mean, I was interested, but usually if it doesn't involve like ocean swimming and tropics, I'm not like that eager to have a destination like that. Um, but I went to where I was called to, this beautiful retreat center on top of Cusco, at over 12,000 feet. Well, just under 12,000 feet. So that was a bit of an adjustment coming from here at 2,000 feet where I live so that's definitely, even on week 3, I would still walk out our front door and walk up this little hill, the Temple of the Moon, and be out of breath. That is definitely not for the faint of heart, and I guess people go to train for athletic things to get some conditioning. But it's interesting how...
Working on your cardio up there,
Yeah.
huh? Okay.
So yeah, one of the things that I got to participate in and that called me was the local cactus there, the San Pedro, which some people call, St. Peter's keys to heaven. has a father energy, and I really can't compare any other experiences in my life where I literally did experience viscerally, physically, cosmically, like heavenly, ecstatic feelings and sensations. Like I was getting glimpses of what heaven looks like, feels like, experienced it in my cells. And one of my takeaways, or measured results, as I like to call them, is I did have pain, a lot of like chronic pain in my body and my joints the last several months from possibly having a mild case of COVID. And suddenly I had aches and pains out of nowhere that were very chronic, very acute. And in one day of a ceremony, I felt all pain leaving my body. And
Mm.
I am again pain free. So I don't know what
Right
exactly
on.
went on, the grace of that, but that's a measured result. And of course, it's always more glorious to be occupying your body in the absence of pain. So, feeling a noticeable calm in my nervous system, more peace, more
Mm.
vacancy, and it's been really hard to be like future building my life. It feels like what's being called for is like radical presence. Being here now, whatever solar flares we're being hit by is causing us to rest a lot more. And so our job is really to honor and listen to our bodies if we have the luxury to do so. So rest when you need rest. And then like in the times that you do have the energy, it's like you're being catapulted forward from these new
Mm.
life force reserves. And like many people I've checked in on upon my return, like we all feel like we're in the void, which is interesting because I was in Peru at Lake Titicaca, where they say the literal sun was born out of that womb water of Lake Titicaca, which many people refer to as the sacral chakra of the earth. And I did have a lot of themes, cosmic themes there, of feeling like rebirth, being at Lake Titicaca is like at 12,000 feet. It's like one of the largest, highest lakes in the world, and many people live there. They live on islands within the lake. It is so beautiful and clean. And I went on a tour boat that took me to an island that literally means Pachamama and Pachatata, so mother and father island, two hills on this sweet little island called Amantani. And there were no speedboats, there was nobody fishing, like there was no one on the lake. Like I imagined it to be industrial, tourists, motorboats, and they say that they have like fish farms, but they're like, no, don't waste your time fishing. So that was a beautiful thing to experience, that the lake really was pristine, and I did get to swim in it in about 60 degrees. Um, but just this concept of Mother Earth's womb, like bringing us back to, we all came from the womb of darkness. We did not know what's coming, where we're going to be born into, what to expect. So it's just interesting coming from that sense of a lot of different forms of rebirth and coming back where people are like, yeah, I'm at a ground zero right now. I'm in the dark. I'm in the unknown. I feel like I'm not allowed to make future plans. I don't see what my future could look like. So we are like forced into this radical faith and trust moment. And the darkness is symbolized by the black hole is, infinite divine feminine. It's like the feminine whole of creation. So, it's not to be feared, but it's not for the faint of heart to let go and trust and surrender that we really are enough or have everything we need. So it just always brings me back into the practice of like when we don't know and we can't plant seeds for ourselves for our best life ever, or how like ideally if you could do anything in the world, what would you do to make money or earn a living? And it's kind of like we're deer in the headlights because our nervous system still tells us we don't want to have to work ourselves to death to the bone for the man and still like not be able to enjoy our life. So just trusting, we've all made it this far. We're still here, no matter what fame and fortune or success and failures we've had, feast or famine, like we have still survived all of these experiences, and we, can we be in faith and trust when we don't know? Because we always have never known. The news is not going to predict our future, but we like to future trip by listening to the news so that we can feel safe or protect ourselves. And so I'm just in that moment of surrender and just trying to honor the, what we do enjoy in life instead of like not what we don't want, but to actually invest time in the things that bring us joy, that bring us purpose. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Quite a journey. Excuse me. Yeah, well, the feeling of just like the ground that we're all working with, whether it's like culturally, skill set, environmental, whatever that is, like it's kind of hard to understand how to uh, feel stable, in a lot of what seems to be um, just ever presently shifting, type of thing. And you can look at it in whatever direction, and it seems to all be pretty uh, moving around. And people I've heard say that like Mount Shasta, like the earth has chakras, and that there's something about the energy of this area that has something to do with the root, like the first chakra. And yeah, just thinking about that, that what does that mean? What do you think that means? Like a energetic root,
Well, yeah, the root, I mean, I like to shy away from the term chakras because, also some higher minded people I know say that chakras like was an old system that we've already outgrown, that actually don't exist because we're just supposed to like be in balance, that we're really like chalices and opening up a channel, just, connecting heaven to earth. So these chakras are allegedly an outdated system, but who knows? It does bring us the information of like it makes sense. Well, what's at the root, at the base of our spine, is just the energies of I am, the basic needs, survival, the right to be here. So definitely many people experience lower back pain, chronic sacral issues, because if they feel unsupported and they're just trying to work but not getting ahead, like they're going to have chronic back issues. Or women having womb issues, chronic things, cysts, hysterectomies, like, things where we're fighting against ourselves and our body because we're in so much fear and panic to survive, based on, inherently growing up in our society around our parents that are struggling, to meet their needs so that they can support their children. And us as children, we're like sponges picking up the energy. They might not be speaking it, like I grew up with my German grandparents straight out of World War II. They met in World War II. All they knew was war and scarcity. And then their household became my heaven. Like, they never spoke about lack. We had enough. We had 3 meals a day on the table. I don't remember once them saying, we don't have this. I mean, they were working class. However, I did pick up their energies, like I am totally about sustainability, about reusing, recycling, and no one modeled that to me. But inherently, we pick up the vibration of our, conditioning, our surroundings. So even it's the unconscious matter. So, yeah, I find that root and sacral energies are very vital to heal in our day and age, to clear like the patterns of our lineage.
Mm.
You know, that we get to reinvent a new paradigm if we don't buy into like that primal fear of our survival, you know. I mean, it serves us, and we have the ability to discern and become more emotionally literate and aware of like, you know, I don't need to foster and cultivate these outdated thinkings that aren't relevant to our world. You know, if we keep hearing the world's dying and you know, there's not enough resources, but the reality is like every day we have everything we need and more, and there's beautiful wildlife in our surroundings, and you're getting the most beautiful sunsets. Like, well, what's real, what you're reading in the news or your direct experience? So it's kind of like this counterproductiveness in our body and our mind. So um, it's our job to rewire our root and make it safe for us to be here while we're living on earth. Right? Do you have everything you need every day? Looks like you do. It looks
Yeah,
like
I
we
mean,
live pretty abundantly.
for the most part, you know, it has a lot to do with kind of like harnessing that horse properly and not allowing your desires to drag you around, because there's no end to that flavor. And yeah, I was thinking about as you were talking, it's like you know, perspective. You know, like I'm born in February, and I live pretty rural and way up on the mountain, and so you know, I got some ideas of like how I might want my birthday to be. Maybe I'll go out and, you know, see some friends or something like that. But the way it was that there was a large storm, dropped multiple feet, super heavy snow, had some mechanical issues, wasn't able to get the machine to work that could remove the snow, and so I ended up spending my birthday uh, pretty much with no other option than what was right in front of me. Like I couldn't have left if I wanted to, and I had a really good time. It was a good day in a sense, you know, and but you know, sometimes like your bandwidth, or like what you are used to having, like your reach of ability or what have you, can be fully limited, you know. And I I really appreciated that in that situation, that I still had like a wonderful cabin and like a big old pile of wood and food in the fridge, and like didn't really have like things that would fall apart if I didn't show up. You know, like sure, everybody wanted to have a little get together, but it just felt good, you know, that like I had the permission to just be grounded in that situation, you know. And you know, think a lot about just the journey of like what it's meant to you know, build a homestead and all this other stuff. Is that like the whole story, like what Shasta's been kind of almost giving me the permission to grow in, is all of these aspects that, you know, if you kind of look at them, they're quite grounding. You know, like, you know, go ahead and like, you know, learn about your forest to the point of you know, finding dead trees and milling them up, and you know, building a house out of the dead bodies of your local, you know, giant plants or what have you. And then you know, start learning about different ones of those that are growing around here to go find your firewood, and maybe you learn other plants and the relationship to it. And they all seem to have a timing and deliverance, like they're all connected to the ground, you know, and a different, you know, like I'm connected to the ground, but not with that sort of root. And but yeah, like just so much of this journey up here, and that like you know, like almost in like the things that you plug into to validate your life in the modern world, like we don't have a lot of like consistency in that world. If you live on Mount Shasta here, like we are a destination spot that has you know, a flow of energy for about 4 or 5 months, and that's if we're not having a firestorm season, which dominates a lot of that time period. And you know, and so it's tricky to have your root based off of like your service to the people, or you know, your social dynamic or something like that, because it's just not it's not a consistency of a ground here, like, and so um but the nature is super grounded here, and so so yeah, I was, we were talking about, like what should we talk about, and we were kind of like talking a little bit like that root energy, and it just gave me that like thought of like, yeah, like almost everything that I'm working on here like is super grounded and follows like a pretty strict perimeter, which, you could call it a law, but it's the law of nature. Like she has a real specific, what's called a pattern and timings, and expression and moments that I've learned that me as a person, that there's moments where I can appear in that space and actually create a symbiotic, beneficial relationship. And it's very grounding, and it's like I've lived in all sorts of different natures, through my life, high in the mountains of Utah, deep in the deserts, in Hawaii, and all of them, there's a grounding ritual wherever you're at, type of thing. But something about the just consistency of being on Mount Shasta, really looking at it, she does allow like my thoughts and my consciousness to be able to be pretty expansive, but the actual gateway to the permission to stay here has so much to do with cultivating the skills that allow you to be grounded.
Yeah, and that's something that we are disconnected from. We're in our society, so in our minds, but then our root is giving out because, we're in the rat race in the capitalistic world where just the annual gardening, like not everyone has had the lifestyle of, I grew up with my German
Mm,
grandparents having a garden. Like I never considered them gardeners or farmers, but it's something that they did in their culture. And so I benefited from it every summer, all year long. But, depending on where you live here, it's not the norm. Um, to have a practice of going into the garden, having a relationship with seeds, going through the process of tending and harvesting and benefiting from it when we can just go to the store and buy it, where city kids don't even know how a tomato grows or where pineapple comes from. So, I mean, there's so many ways of grounding, like the quickest way is actually hugging a tree. Um, I met a girl in Peru from Vancouver who said she had never hugged a tree before that day when we did.
mm,
And she couldn't believe how powerful it was, how she felt, like she couldn't stop talking about it. She had no idea. So, yeah, grounding is kind of like what I like to call what will it take to incarnate more fully before we die, right? And that will, some of us have to create breaking a leg or twisting an ankle to be laid up just so that they'll stop, and so what can we do to temper ourselves and our existence that we bring more balance so that we don't create extreme situations for us to stop, whether it's chronic illnesses, all those things are kind of designed to wake us up, to pay attention to our bodies, our lifestyles. So those things end up becoming the blessing when we think it's a curse, slowing us down, getting us into new rhythms. Um, so yeah, if you're here called to be in Mount Shasta, like your root issues are going to be examined, and you're going to be called to, like you said, having the higher mind experiences, the cosmic experiences, but then also the chop wood, carry water moments. Um, like a lot of us here go to the headwaters to gather the fresh spring water, like for those of you who know, like we get to drink pure water here and have that be part of our sustenance, and it's free. Um, So, yeah, the grounding thing, like what I've heard recently from a sister who's lived here over a decade, it's like the mountain is not a place to come to thrive. Like in the indigenous days, it was a place to come to die. So, a lot of us seekers and searchers who end up here, we are literally having to die to old parts of ourselves, to older desires, to any kind of ambition. Like all of your intentions are going to be tested. And like for me, I definitely can see how often I get uprooted here and get moved around. And my biggest desire is to have a home and be anchored. But it's not my job right now. My job is to be exactly where I'm at and to tend the land wherever I'm at in whatever ways. Seems like I've participated in a garden every single place I've lived, and not because that's part of my wish list, but it's something I've learned is important, to be part of putting your hands in the soil where you are and cultivating. And anyway, I have noticed that in this process, all of some of my core root fears have been activated and having to be faced and pulled at the root. It's not fun, but it's still like at the end of the day, it's assisting me because these are old things that need to go. So in that sense, old beliefs of who I am have been collapsing. So yeah, we've been having that conversation about what it means for you to be here because most people do struggle in this area economically. Anything you want to share about that topic?
Yeah, you gotta do whatever it takes, to kind of stay in the game up here. But there's a lot to that story. I mean, like we're not living out the same paradigm that like what the perimeters that my parents were needed to do to be able to be a householder in our culture. Like it's a different time period. And like there's all the hopes for the future of Mount Shasta. I'm like it's got so much potential, um, and also a lot of the mentality up here, like multiple generational people that own our boulevards and different stuff like that is kind of the attitude. If it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? And I've seen over the years, like almost every single like offering of something that has to do with like well-being, or something that has to do with like just bringing something unique and new to the table here in Mount Shasta, is that most of these places only last like maybe like 3 years, and walk away with a debt from their endeavor, and yet the landlords got paid every month. You know what I mean? And it's like there's a certain things going on up here. I've been here a long time, and before the kind of explosion of Airbnbs, that there was a lot of almost like people's like second homes or whatever, but they would rent them. And so like all over the county, especially over on the side of the mountain that you live on, there was always like these well established like McMansion 5 acre multiple story beautiful houses that like whole groups of like-minded traveling and earth base, and just kind of like folks would come and actually stay on Mount Shasta because they could get access to these types of structures. And that paradigm all started evaporating about a decade ago. And so and then like the majority of people that actually like are the people that live up here are not at a working age. That like it's a predominantly a like a retired level of population up here. And so it's and the Shasta is amazing, but as far as like the commerce that originally like kind of created these towns was forest products. And that's just in a different paradigm. Like there's not an endless forest as far as the eyes can see, of opportunity of just like getting her done mode or what have you type of thing. And so the raised on timber paradigm up here is still active, but it's not active on a level that it actually is a major part of, like, I've lived here for 15 years and I've only met a few people the whole time that I've lived here that are part of that industry. And so, yeah, so, it's there's a lot of different reasons why it's tricky being up here, Veruschka, and I am definitely like, kind of hard to fit in, and different synergies sometimes, like, I don't know for you guys, but a lot of what people want you to get behind it, call what you do or whatever, yeah, it doesn't really make sense, and so I've been kind of forced to just keep doing my best to be an entrepreneur, work with my skill set, and however that is, and but it's really led me into that, like, there really is this huge, immense wilderness area here, that is, unless you've been being paid to be in it for the most part, nobody's out there. You know what I mean? It's like you have some forestry workers and some timber workers, and there's all these, like, known spots, on the other side of the mountain that are just absolutely beautiful, and have nice trails and all this other stuff. Just everybody's there, but the rest of this just nature on the mountain is it's pretty much abandoned. There's nobody out there, and so over the years of, like, living, like, surrounded in that, like, I got to go out of my way to go to Shasta City, and unless you got some thing that you're doing, maybe going to the park or doing something for well-being, like, for me, the only reason why I go to town is to spend money. You know what I mean? It's like, if, like, people are like, oh, you want to go to town? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, what are we going to do? We're going to go buy something, buy some entertainment, buy a product, do whateverness it is type of thing. And so just living out rural like this, that, like, I kind of have this junction where I get to this little turn where I can turn left and just end up endlessly in the wilderness area, where I can turn right and pretty soon be on a highway that can lead me over to where, where people are piling up or what have you. And for years, like, almost every time I hit there, unless there's, like, a very specific that I'm going to town for, I always kind of check myself to make sure that I'm actually following the right direction or what have you type of thing. And so years and years of doing this kind of sport, and bought really small, not expensive, like less than it would cost to rent somebody's refurbished laundry room in their double wide trailer up here, and then just my time is valuable, and so, just kept working with as much of this local natural materials and skills to just keep building this thing. And so, to go back to that left turn that I'm talking about, is that in that wilderness out there, that I've learned that it has some of the absolutely, like, legendary on a global level super flushes of some of the most exotic, amazing nutrition edible mushrooms. It's absolutely, like, who would have thought it type of thing. I mean, like, it's amazing type of thing. And then, like, there's all these different layers of elevation that have these full communities of different families of conifers, deciduous, perennials, and so many of them are, like, I mean, they're beautiful. You can, until I actually started understanding the texture of, like, seeing the forest, not just being like, wow, it's green, there's trees type of thing, but, like, actually seeing into that canopy and start distinguishing that it's actually like a whole, like, orchestra, like an amphitheater of all of these different plants that are doing their things, and they're, like, moving, and whole communities depending on their elevation here, and that most of them, known and unknown, um, have a lot to offer besides, like, shared breath and beauty, and just, like, wow, we're all alive here and it's really good to see you, like there's a lot that we just share with life, but most of them actually are medicine plants, like, just they really are. A lot of them are not the simplest to figure out how to process a relationship to them down to the level in which we as the short-haired mammal, with our anatomy and our relationship to the elementals to be able to consume, and be part of, that relation. And so I just kind of kept tapping into this, and just finding myself like further and further out in areas that I didn't expect, especially chasing the mushrooms. Like the mushrooms are a disturbance, flower. So like you're always like going into areas that like if you were just going to look just for like the most pristine, beautiful piece of the nature, probably not going to find a lot of mushrooms there. At least the ones that I'm looking for. Like there's something about the studying of like the disturbance of fire and human activity and glacial mudslides and all this other stuff like that footprint of change type of thing. Like these mushrooms are almost like the announcement of like how much potential and life actually exists within like the moment of change. Like they just come out in like a full expression in that sort of space. And so it's led me to follow different trails than like the known sacred sites. Like I'm not going up to like Squaw Meadows or up to the Headwater Springs to look for these types of relationships. They're in this different type of the nature here. And yeah, and through that continued journey, I'm getting to the point where I'm actually like figuring out how to like actually create a trade blanket related to this process. And being in the wilderness, and trying to build this homestead thing, like I kind of like disappeared, like fell off the map for over a decade. And there's a little bit of a dance to actually like re-emerging, back into being able to participate with the rhythms and patterns of the larger community, what's going on in these towns around here. And what's been my too small to fail soft launch of like starting the farmers market, and just walking into this in a way that like that I feel like I can be in front of my steps, type of thing. Like like a lot of us have a big vision, you know what I mean, and see a really big future, and it's really bright and possible, but like we've got to figure out how to just keep making the next step, type of thing. And so um, this mushroom fair that's going on, that like through my community of a few other just like wonderful people that really are in love with this forest, and uh, just comb it with their intention, looking for these mushrooms, you know what I mean? And you've been doing it with their young kids since they were like carrying them along with them, just like there's some really good people on Mount Shasta here. And but yeah, it just feels good that like through this connection, I'm actually working with our local Chamber of Commerce here in Mount Shasta. And after over 30 years of a continuous mushroom fair on Mount Shasta here, that me and two other people are the main informational people in all the workshops and the field trips into the forest to actually find mushrooms during the mushroom fair this year. And the reason why I'm kind of like mentioning this stuff is that these are progressions that like I didn't necessarily expect, that all of these times that I was turning left, that proverbial left, was going to eventually make a right turn into this other world, but I would be able to show up in a way, because of how many times that I turned left, in a way that actually is exceptionally valuable to the folks that are doing living the way that I run into, that are going right. And so yeah, thanks everybody for just letting me just kind of like talk
Yeah.
a little bit about forest life, and and this like what do you do, what gives you the permission to stay, like you know what it's a worthy challenge, to do something that is valuable, and that you feel that like transparent, that you can actually like talk about, that it doesn't have this like shadowy closet in the backside of things that like you're like, it's so good except for these other details that like if you don't ask, I'm not going to talk about. And I feel like there's just too much of that work going on in the world at this point, you know what I mean? Like so
Yeah. But like what you said about it's a natural progression, you know, like you listened, you know, what I call the call and response, like your path of choosing this location, this site, observing what it takes for you to survive, engaging, and again, going back to like doing what you love. You love the curiosity of adventure, of checking it out, what's in your own
Mm,
backyard. People often don't even see what's in their own backyard. You know, they say that everything you need to heal is in your front and backyard. You know,
mm,
usually the plants, the herbs, um, exactly that what you need to remedy whatever complaint you have. Um, so to me, you're like a translator of what you found, you know,
mm,
and you've done your own from your purity of heart and natural curiosity has brought you information. And, you know, they say in the plant spirit world that if a plant gives you an answer or shows you something,
mm,
then it's your job to share it with the community. And so I just love how you like are filling a gap, you know, like you are now a teacher and the translator to share, like, look, this is right here. Look at all of this medicine you brought out of the woods. Look at all the variety of things that you were able to turn them into
mm,
and to assist the people. So it's like, again, what I call the call and response. It's like you're asking, what does it take to be here? And you look closer, and it's like existence rises up to meet you. And then it's still like some of your responsibility to share it with those who don't know.
mm.
You know, whether they're just the end consumer to benefit from the medicines, or they're also, you know, you're teaching a man to fish. You
Yeah.
know, it's all of that. So, in a way, like from where I sit, it's not a surprise, but a natural progression, you know? But
Hmm.
that's like what true patience and temperance and perseverance, you know, you're modeling that because you didn't even know what would be on the other side of this, you know?
It's so true, and it's like, yeah, it makes me think of like all these different like pieces that all put together. But Veruschka, off to the left, you mind grabbing one of those woven bags where I can show a little bit of, like it's a, it's springtime, type of thing. And again, there's so much to do right now. And I don't know how well you guys can see these, but these are, back when I was a traveling kid, and I've always kind of like just needed to have something to stay busy with. And so I learned this freehand style of weaving a long time ago. And it's helped me out with so much of like learning how to like strategize and like create movement around fixed features to like create structure. And I kind of get to this point, where like the springtime's coming in. I've got this sauna that I can start working on again, and blah blah blah. We got events that happen here. We got these fairs happening out there. I've got a fifth generation, label advancement going on. I've cracked codes with like, multiple more plants, 2 new seasonal incense, blah blah blah. I mean, like, it just goes on, and I hit this point where I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling like I don't know which one of these things that I'm working on here actually are the most, like, I don't know where and how to like organize my intentions to actually like they're all important, but like I'm coming to like, the road is wide but the gate is narrow type of moment. Like I got to tighten it all up and like get it through a tighter moment. And so even though I've got all of these other things to be doing right now, what I knew I needed to do was actually grab my string, work on something that actually has nothing to do with any of these other pieces. It's like the like, who doesn't have some jar of something in their life that they carry, that they find is very very special and important, that may really want a bag, And so I've got some things in my life that I definitely feel that way, and so I started putting these strings together, and I have my notepad next to me, and it gives me this ambidextrous kind of like pattern recognition kind of flow art that literally frees up my consciousness. It opens up this space where like that restlessness of like the part of my mind that's like, what are we doing? My body's like, yeah, and like, how am I doing it for you? And then like my brain's like, all right, and this is which direction we're going. Well, it kind of gives my body and my like that other part of my activity almost like a prayer mala spinning and chanting a basic mantra that like locks these two parts of our awareness that need something like they're fully active. They're almost impossible to turn off. So it's more like give them something to do that doesn't actually fully dominate your actual awareness type of thing. And then through that meditation, all of a sudden that settling effect that I need when I'm like working on like what fixed features do I need to put in place to make movements of flow patterns type of thing to like actually navigate, this free will channel. You know what I mean? Like when you're kind of like out in like, entrepreneurs gone wild kind of sport, it's like there's a lot of that needs to happen. And so yeah, I just thought I'd mention that too, like just this like just different ways to work with understanding how to navigate what are the right decisions for this good life that that is in front of you, that a few of us have lived long enough to grow a beard, you know what I mean, and don't act like it's sneaking up on you. Like you care about people, you care about things, like there's good stuff that you want to bring into the world, and sometimes maybe like there's something that you can do, like that, like people do gardening or whatever it is, that like these things that give you that groundingness that you need to allow a settling effect to happen, because sometimes you just need to slightly reorganize the things that are moving and the things that are solid type of thing to find yourself in a completely different pattern of flow.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that piece in. For others of us, it could be, knitting or, the repetitive things, but it's really a nervous system thing. And in a lot of our world, especially since the digital age, like ADHD is a growing and a real thing because we've learned to interrupt our attention so much that these, like, I started painting by numbers. It seems so silly, but because you're just like focusing on filling in that little thing, like, whatever hobbies we can take up that actually counterbalance some of our forward moving activities that are action oriented, but what are the balancing out things for our nervous system that just take us outside of the brain having to overcompensate. Anyway, well, today has been a bit about like talking about the root and grounding. Roots. And we'll continue our conversation soon. So thanks for hanging out with us in the cabin at the Sacred Fire of Mount Shasta.
Happy spring!
And if you're around, come and check out the Mushroom Festival.